This is Uncle Stu, the old man on the block.
Hey everyone, this is the Intentional Millionaire, and we have a special guest here today. We have Uncle Stu, old man on the block, okay? And Uncle Stu, we realized that we was in the same geographic area, and we decided to get together to do a collaboration, and we're gonna talk about some great information today, and it's gonna talk a little bit about economics, history, and you're gonna see a whole other side of Uncle Stu, how he brings all the guidance, he brings the professionalism, and he brings the information that really allow us to sit back and use our minds to really think about how we can continue to press the ball forward. Okay, so glad to have you, Uncle Stu.
Thank you.
Okay, so
glad to be here.
So just give a little bit of background about yourself, who you are, and kind of how, I'm excited that we was able to get a chance to actually sit down and meet in this short period that we actually interacted with each other.
Right.
And now we put name with a face, individual together.
In the same city and state, see?
And also, we just want to shout out TLA.
TLA.
The 757 is coming.
That's right. That's right. 757, remember. I know Hank from the 404, but 757.
Okay, but Uncle Stu, let's share with the audience, a little bit about yourself.
Well, born and raised in New York City, New York. Lived there all the way up until 18. Then I went to college, and I ended up going into the military after my daughter was born. Served time in Persian Gulf, came back. Stayed in New York for a while, then I ended up moving to North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Stayed in North Carolina for over 17 years and ended up moving here to Virginia. But in the midst of all of that time, went to college, got my degree in theology, got a degree in history, political science. I taught for a long time. Most of my ministry work, I spent over 16 years as a Muslim before I converted to Christianity, so was much more in depth in the Quran and the Sunnah, what they would call the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad. So I did a lot of work dealing with Islamic schools, and practicing the religion itself. And then I became a Christian, and because of my in-depth knowledge of Islam, I was able to take some of the discipline that I learned out of Islam and applied it to Christianity. That's years later that what led me to go to theology school to get a more in-depth understanding of the Bible itself, especially studying the language, studying Hebrew, studying Greek, and then one of the books of the Bible is written in Aramaic. So, I was able to kind of be able to diverse into that. Political science and history basically aligns with my theology. Because if you don't understand the history of something, then you don't understand how it's applied today. And the politics of it just helped me to understand the governance of everything that's going on. So I kind of like to say I come from a theological, economical, business perspective. So when I look at both the Bible and the Quran together or separate, it gives me an entire worldview and a different perspective of how to apply the very things I read and study every single day.
Okay. So Uncle Stu, so it's always, we're going to kind of just share with everyone about, how we can continue to move the ball forward. So Uncle Stu, I got a great question I want to ask you. Okay. So when it comes to, you having a great worldview, you have a lot of historical data, being able to study Islam as well as Christianity.
Right.
I want to ask you, so why do you think it's important for individuals as a whole to understand economics as it relates to, you're making the transition with your Christianity? Mm-hmm. When you're making that transition with your spiritual beliefs.
Right.
And, just what you see, you got a background in politics.
Right.
What would you say is some of the things that we as a community need to focus on when we talk about economics?
Well, when we talk about economics, we have to understand it first on a micro level. Economics as far as our home is concerned. And then from the micro level is only time we can really talk about the macro level.
Okay.
Okay. So to put it in the most simplest forms, if you don't know how to budget your income, and that's where it got to start, how do I produce what I need and what do I really need? So when we look at our needs, we say, well, we need a place to stay. We need food, the whole Maslow's theory. How much is that going to cost me? Mm-hmm. What do I need to do? We know about trades, goods, and services, but the argument should first start with, what do I need just to survive versus live? And survival and living, in my theory, is two different. So let's go with survival. What do I need as the basis? How am I going to produce what I need?
Right.
Okay. Sounds selfish, but that's our nature. And so as men, we need to first know how to produce our needs, our first basic law of needs. We need a place to stay, we need food, and we need clothing. How am I going to produce that money? So that's the first part of economics, producing. Second part of economics is managing what I am producing, which means I produce a certain amount of wealth, manage, pay the things that I need to pay for these goods, services, and things that's over my head. But at the same time, now I want to learn how to take these goods, wealth, and services that I'm producing, and how can I help the greater good and yet still be able to provide for myself? So this is when you get into the areas of investment and finance. In other words, maybe other people don't have the goods and services that I have. So what I can do is teach how to produce and invest in other people being producers as well. So that's where you hear the term investing in someone else's business. They're doing the work, but you're reaping the profits. Bible talks about that the lender will no longer become the borrower. I'm going to help you to produce enough money so that you're no longer the borrower, right? You become the lender. Now who is the lender? You become the one that people come to get money in order to produce. Now, if you're going to loan them money, how do you make money just through the loan? Well, if you look at the Old Testament, God talks about this. In the Old Testament, if you're not a Jew, then I can charge you an interest on the money I loaned you. Now, if you're a Jew, there is no interest. So if I'm loaning you money and say charging you 10% interest, that means I'm making 10% on the money I've loaned you.
Right.
If I loan out enough money, I can make my own money back with interest, which means what we would call a profit.
Right.
So now I got money working for me instead of me working for the money.
Right.
So the more I loan and the more I got money working for me, the less work I got to do to take care of my basic needs.
Fantastic.
You see? So now, when I as a man am ready to get a wife, this is where the dowry system comes in at. Okay? So if I want a wife, and we have to understand, the dowry system or the dowry economic system was based on agriculture. This is why anywhere you go in the world where you see a more agricultural society, you're going to find that those families have multiples of children. The more hands you have to produce on that farm, the more food you have, the more food production you have. Similar to a business, the more employees you have, the more you should be able to produce, right? So now, when you go to marry another farmer's wife, let's say you see a daughter and you like this woman. Where the dowry came from is not that you're saying she's only worth $100,000. You're not buying her as a slave. You are paying the father for the money he would have, that the money he's losing by taking his daughter off of the farm. So this whole concept of, oh, you paying for a woman is the wrong way to look at it.
Right.
That's what the dowry system came with. So let's say you own a farm, and say you have your daughter and your son. Mm-hmm. Now, man wants to come and he wants to, marry your daughter. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's pretend that the daughter is $10,000 and say the son was $20,000. We just put numbers on it. Well, when he marries your daughter, this is $10,000 out of your basic household needs. So the man that marries your daughter will say, I wanna marry your daughter, and I'm willing to give you $10,000 to marry your daughter. That's $10,000 of a whole year's salary. So while this daughter is gone, you haven't lost anything economically. Okay? It also shows in that same economic system that not only am I going to give you $10,000, but this woman now becomes valuable to me in an agricultural way, because what does she bring to the table? She brings children. The most important thing in most agricultural families was children. The more children a woman could have, the more he can produce. Mm-hmm. You see, the more employees we have, the more our business should be able to produce.
Right.
Okay, so let's stick with the agriculture, and then we'll bring it into modern day times.
Okay.
So
this is good stuff.
Thank you. So here you are, and the prosperity part of the woman was she was able to produce. So the more children she was able to produce, that meant more production. Mm-hmm. So back in the old days, if you want to use that terminology, in the old days, that's why you hear about the term barren woman.
Right.
In the Bible. Mm-hmm. Why was the barren woman considered a curse? Because if she couldn't produce children, she was no value, technically, to the man.
Right.
You see? Now, there was ways around that. Now, this is why Sarah becomes so important in the Bible when you hear about Abraham saying, I want a child.
Right.
That was why it was so imperative, because Abraham wanted not a seed for the promise, but for prosperity.
Right.
Okay? So that's where you get into all these narratives about why a man may have a second wife. It was more based on having children. It wasn't a sexual need, because this was the type of economics. So let's bring it up to modern day times. When we as men understand how to produce money, manage money, multiply money, then we have a better understanding of what a woman should bring to the table. Mm-hmm. She now can come to the table, and if we have our stuff together, we may not be giving her father a dowry because we're in a total economic system. Mm-hmm. But now she becomes the addition to everything we've already done. She becomes the additional provision, the additional management, and the additional investment to produce more of what we already have.
Gotcha.
Now that's the holistic utopia
right.
aspect of it. We know that there's some other complicated issues that go with it. But let's use the utopia, because one of the things that is missing when we look at scripture and family and the dynamics, we need that utopia because it gives us a mark.
Right.
When Jesus speaks, he gives us a high standard so that we have something to strive for. Right. So even if you miss the standard, you've already raised yourself so much to a standard that you're still above the standard.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it'll be just like saying, okay, if the standard for my living is to be so perfect that I make the $1 million, I have the perfect family, perfect home, perfect. Well, if you're living in the gutter and you only get halfway, you're still better than when you was living in the gutter.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you know, come from a place where you and your wife was making $20,000 and you fight, because let's say your goal is to make the $1 million. Well, if you never make the $1 million, but you at least get to the 50, 60,000 mark, you're living better than everybody else.
Right.
Okay? Now, a lot of times we think that the power lies in the wealthiest of people and the poorest of the people. Well, that's a misnomer. The most powerful people is the middle class. That's where the peace is at. Most of us don't want to work 60, 70 hours a week in order to be a millionaire.
Right.
But none of us want to be so broke that we can't even fill our basic needs.
Right.
So our happiness lies right there in the middle. This is why whenever you read newspapers or you read anything, you never really see them focus on the rich. And they don't really focus on the numbers of the poor. They focus everything on the middle class. Because the middle class is in a unique position. They're in that position where they can help the poor, but they're also in a position where they're a step away from being rich.
Right.
And they got that cushion right there.
Right.
So the more middle class we can build, the better we can handle the whole sociological dynamics.
Gotcha.
Okay? So what that ties into, European history. The Enlightenment Era was all about getting rid of the monarch, the king, that was being greedy, getting rid of the Catholic Church that had their hands in the pocket of government, okay? Because the Catholic Church got a whole lot to do with all this stuff going on in Europe. But the whole idea was when the forming of America came, it took a lot of political ideas, but it also took a lot of economic ideas. And one of the key components of those economics was Adam Smith. Now, a lot of people study Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, but they didn't study Adam Smith, the sociologist.
Gotcha.
And you got to study the sociology before you get to his economics, because his whole basis and his whole theory is capitalism, which is the producing of wealth, because now we're in a different economy system, that if you produce capitalism, it will help the social aspect. One market can never be the monopoly of another market because of competition and competitiveness.
Gotcha.
You see, so let's say you produced these two things. Okay, you dominate the market. So you can charge anything you want. But if I come in to compete with you, what you was once charging, the prices got to go down because now you got competition.
Right.
So that's where you hear economic competition. How do you do it on a home basis? Well, if everybody is producing, then that means goods and services has to change. So we can all afford it. So we can negotiate prices. We can negotiate a whole lot of different things. So this is why it is important, on a quick scale, to study basic economics, because that way, understanding economics will understand what's really happening sociologically around you. When I went to school in high school, they used to always teach us, read the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. The New York Times is going to explain what's going on sociologically, but the Wall Street Journal is going to explain to you what's going on economically that's causing the sociological issues. So that's the summary of it as far as understanding that part.
Okay. So let me ask you this. You brought up some very good points. But for people that don't understand the difference in economics and the social side, can you just kind of give a little bit of background about the economic difference and the social difference?
Sure.
And then kind of tie it together to how that equates to where a person may be, whether it be they may understand the social side but not the economic side.
Okay.
And they may understand the economic side but not the social side.
Okay. Let's look at it from this point of view. Let's take it as a business owner. You own a business, right? And now, what is really the purpose of business? Purpose of business is to produce wealth. We're not going to talk about profits. We're not going to talk about all that other stuff. It's to produce wealth. So a person goes into business. That business owner, their whole responsibility is to produce wealth. Well, how are they going to produce wealth? They hire employees to do the production.
Right.
The employees got money. What does the employees do with that money? Well, they want goods and services. So
Right.
they go out and they spend for goods and services. Now, when we understand the mindset of a business owner versus an employee, that business owner wants to keep all the wealth he has, right? Now, he also has to worry about government. And when I say government, it means governance. Who is going to be responsible for not only the business, but for the people around him?
Right.
So, to think it in a real simple way, a business owner's responsibility is not only to produce wealth for himself, but to help the social issues that might be outside of that. So, for example, he owns a business, right? He takes care of the wealth as far as his employees, right? Now, there's another group that's not talked about, which is he can only hire but so many people. So now you got this group that doesn't work, not producing wealth, but they still have basic needs. So in order to solve the basic needs, some of the people that are working can either do one of two things. Either A, they can separate themselves and form organizations that can act as a social buffer between the employee and those who are not working. And if they don't do that, then it's on what they call government to do that.
Right.
Now, in order for government to do that, where are they going to get their money from? Taxes.
Right.
Right? Do they want to tax the man that owns the business that is allowing people to work? Or do they tax the workers and very little of the business? Well, the logical idea is you want to tax the employees. Why? Because if you tax the employees, A, you get more money. B, that tax will then be able to help the class that doesn't work. If you tax the business owner, well, he's a businessman. So what is he going to do? Well, if you tax the business owner too much, where is he going to get his profit from? He's going to start getting rid of employees.
Right.
Right? So if he gets rid of employees, because he's not going to give up his money, right? He's going to get rid of employees. So the more employees he get rid of and can still produce the same amount of goods and services with less employees, he's still going to make money. You now have less employees, still producing the same goods and amount of services, but guess what else builds up? The social issues.
Gotcha.
Because these people can't produce. There's no jobs. There's nothing. So the more you have this problem, now government got to step in to solve this. They're going to do what? More taxing. Who's going to get taxed? Is it going to be these people, the business owner, or the employees?
Employees.
Employees. So now more employees get taxed. What's now happening to the wealth of their goods and services? It gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Now you have, as part of the niche of inflation.
Gotcha.
Okay? So, business owner is always going to look after his needs. I love my employees. But the government itself is going to tax who the most? The middle class.
Gotcha.
And the more the middle class is taxed, guess where they go? Are they going up or are they going down?
They're going down.
Exactly. And the more down your middle class becomes, look at now what's known as the economic divide.
So let me ask you about that then. So when it comes to social issues, what would you say are some of the social issues that you see currently in today's times? Just to name a few, like name 3 or 4 different social issues that you personally see or experienced or whatever the case may be.
Okay, I'm going to look at 3 different social issues. We're going to take this same social divide as what you're now seeing in America. This is not a racial issue. This is an economic issue.
Right.
Okay, so now, social divide number 1. Let's go back to the bottom. Family. The biggest social issue that affected, if I use race, and I hate using race because number for number, there's more white people on welfare than there is black people. Although we tend to, because of a Ronald Reagan statement, we tend to look at race. So we're gonna, for right now, we're gonna look at race. The first biggest social issue we have is family. But that family breakup on a macro scale began with policies. And one of the policies is the welfare policy and the housing policies. What did welfare policy say? Welfare policy said that we will give you government money, and this government money will supplement income that women did not have. And that welfare originally started with white women after World War II. But then they fed that same system to black women in the 60s. And black women began going after the welfare system. And they began going after the housing system, which we know today as the projects,
Right.
or lower income housing. Well, what did the policy really say? Now, holistically, we would think it dealt with a certain level of economics. In other words, if to live, you only needed $20,000, welfare, in theory, was only supposed to get you to that $20,000 mark. But what did welfare end up doing? It said, we will help you as long as there's not a man in the house. Now, if there's a man in the house, we can't help you. Well, what does that mean? Government now competed with the head of household. So when a woman actually had to look at it, government said, we can give you a guaranteed $20,000. But the man couldn't guarantee that he can produce $20,000.
Right.
You see? So now you had guarantee versus variable. And the woman sold out to the guarantee. Now, what did that end up doing? Here you have a welfare guaranteed check. You got a husband and wife, right? Now you remove the male out of the family. So that was one part of policy that was created. To give her a home, you still had to move the man out the house. So now you had this woman with children, no man. That was the first major breakup of the black family. The second major breakup of the black family, now that you had him, the second breakup was something called welfare. It was called child support. Because remember, the man is no longer there. So he's gone. Government steps in and says to this woman, you deserve food stamps. You deserve child support. Now, how did they sell this policy to the macro national scene? They end up putting women on television that came from very affluent homes. And they would say, well, my husband's a doctor, we divorced, he ain't paid child support. My other husband, he's a business owner, multi-millionaire, he don't pay child support. So this is what they put out in the news. But in reality, the policy really attacked the middle class and poor class community, especially the black community. But here's how they did the okie doke. The welfare system said to the single mother, we will go after the father for child support if you make us your middleman. The middleman was a private run organization. So when she accepts these food stamps, the Medicaid, the Section 8, she sold it, her right to get direct child support from the father, and gave it to this agency. What did this agency do? This agency said, not only are we going to control the economics of your children, we're also going to control whether you can see your children. How do they do that? They separated the purpose of child support from the purpose of child visitation. So in separation, they said, by policy, which we know as law, child support is one thing. We just want to deal with the money. We don't want to deal with whether or not he can see his child. We don't care about that. We're trying to make money.
Right.
So what they did was they turned around, became the middleman, and to destroy this side of the family tree, they told him, you pay us what you owe her. She's good. We giving her money. You pay us now. How does he profit more than her? Because the father now got to pay this agency. But if he doesn't pay this agency has a jail system. So if the father doesn't pay him, he now has the power to have the father locked up. But here's the catch. Father gets locked up for 3 days for not paying child support. But the child support payment keeps going up and up and up. Now after 3 days, this father who didn't pay child support, or maybe didn't pay all of child support, or maybe missed the date in child support, and got locked up for the weekend, he just lost his job. Doesn't matter how long it takes him to get a job, child support is still being built up. Still going higher and higher and higher. Because of the desperation that he wants of his money, he creates more policies. He says, well, if you don't pay me, you can't have your driver's license. You won't be able to work at certain jobs. We'll destroy your credit. This man is being destroyed little by little by a government agency while she is financially prospering. He's going down. He no longer has a driver's license. Now he has bad credit. And now it makes it harder for him to get a job. Now he's turning around having to owe more and more in child support. Guess where he goes back to? Straight to jail. Meanwhile, as they say in the old song, she's living a good life. So she thinks. But it also does something that a lot of people don't realize. When you have a woman in a home, and we went all the way back to original economics and the farming industry. I said in farming, the woman was the producer for the children to work on the farm.
Right.
Today, the woman is all the system needs. She is the producer for the prison system. That's the new agricultural farm today.
Wow. That was powerful, you all. That's powerful.
Yes. And if you take it away from one side, she not only produces the prison system, but now, let's say she comes off of welfare and she moves into the middle class. She still produces the prison system on this side. She produces prison system on that side. Well, how is she producing the prison system? One, child support is still involved. The laws are still here. So she produces a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
He still owes child support. So how does she get her money from child support? She hired the same agency that controlled the welfare child support. So either way it go, he's now become valuable to the prison system and valuable to the child support system. He is destroyed. She still prospers.
Wow. So what would be something in, I mean, that is a very good snapshot of how we was able to get to where we're currently at today.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at that, I guess the next question, one would wonder is, how can we fix it? What would need to happen to kind of move everything in a better direction? Because that was more from the socialist standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
but now from an economic standpoint, what would one need to do to kind of help restructure some of this? And let's just say outside of policy or inside of policy, just based on your knowledge, something you would recommend?
Yeah, my knowledge is that people need to understand policy. And what policy is, it is laws written. And that these laws is how things are governed. And we need to understand how laws, governance, and how it affects the social aspect of our environment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So let's take a different analogy. Okay. We have a policy. And let's say this policy is sold. And when we say sold, mean told to the public. We write a policy that says we're going to protect women who's been abused.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to say that these women has been abused so much that we need laws to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They sell it where all these women's been abused in some shape, form, or fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So if this woman gets abused, then we're going to have power to lock the man up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But here's the problem with the policy. In the beginning, it worked just fine. But then they started adding more to this policy.
Mm-hmm.
Because what was happening was some men was able to get lawyers to fight charges, which meant that the woman doing the accusing would be investigated.
Right.
Well, women didn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Why they didn't like that? Because now their character was in question.
Right.
And because their character was in question, policies was written to remove her character. So now she can accuse a man of a violation, but you was not allowed to defend yourself against her character.
Wow.
So she's allowed to accuse you all day long, but you're not allowed to protect yourself against her accusations. The only way to reverse this is to start changing some of the policies that changes the governance, that changes the negative outcomes.
Gotcha.
Let's take it back to economics. The reason this can't change is because, let's think about it. If I have power and I am fully protected by this power, why would I want to give up power to have equality?
Wow. That's deep.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, we who wants to give up power to be equal? See, there's no true equality. There's no government where the heads are equal.
Right.
No government. None. Zero. It doesn't work. Even in a democracy, we give the president a certain amount of power that's even separate from the legislative and judicial branch. We give the presidency enough power and enough freedom to make certain decisions without having to come to the people and without it having to go to through the legislative branch. He has what they call police power.
Right.
If emergency happen, he has the ultimate authority to send the military out anywhere. Right? So there's that governance does not exist. Same thing in a home. That governance cannot exist. It's impossible. A two-headed snake is a freak. And he'll eventually die. Somebody has to lead and somebody has to follow. Okay? So let's take it back to governance. Now, the only way to reverse this is that we got to start studying the policies and how they're affecting the home.
Right.
So the reason, if I look at color for the moment, the reason black men and black women can't come together is because they're being governed by policies that is not in the best interest of the family.
Right.
It's only in the best interest of one.
Right.
And so until we affect that one, we can't see the whole.
Right.
We can't see the whole. The other problem is we also are governed by two political systems in the sense of, we say Democrat and Republican. And we get caught up with this, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. But what we're not looking at is what is the policies that run these two groups.
Right, right.
You see? So when we look at policies, a lot of times we're looking at who is on the head of the policy and not the policy itself.
Gotcha.
You see? So not to get too deep, but if you got Biden and you got Trump, we made Trump evil. And this is not about whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, but we got two people, Biden, Trump. Now we say, argumentatively, who I want to have a beer with, who can I could say is closer to me as a personality. Well, that's the wrong answer. I don't care about personality. It's what is the policies that these two people are trying to promote.
Gotcha.
That's what affects me. Not who's at the top of the ticket in the White House. Is the policies that affects me each and every single day. So if you got one group pushing social policies and another group pushing economic policies, here's the irony. It's real funny to me that the people that push the social stuff never was in business, so how can they fix social issues when we have to recognize that it's our economic problems that are the cause of the social problems? But only a business person can solve social issues. A social person cannot solve business issues. And we have been taught as a group of people to look at everything sociologically, when in fact you have to look at everything economically. Goes right back to the Bible. God said, I created heaven and earth, fruits, animals, and all these different things. Seeing the food, that's the economic side. Because it solved the social problem when he created man. What is man made to produce? Subdue the land, produce off this land. That solves all your sociological needs. A hungry man cannot solve an economic problem.
That is so true. So true.
Right?
I mean, think about it, y'all. You hungry, you going to try to start a business.
Right.
You need to get a sandwich first.
Right. Right? What do we always tell people? Teach a man how to fish, he can fish for a day. He'll be a fisherman. If you give him a fish, he gonna come right back begging for the fish.
Right.
right?
That is so true.
What do we keep telling black people? Wait on government. Wait for your reparations. Wait for your food stamps. Wait for your BOAD. Wait for your man to come home. Wait. But if I show you how to fish for yourself, you ain't gotta wait on government. If I teach you how to build your own wealth, you ain't gotta wait on government. If I teach you how to produce, manage, and finance your wealth, you can build your own community. You don't need any one group. But here's what we say. Oh no, in business, show you how narrow-minded we are. We want to produce a whole bunch of wealth off of 13% of the population. That doesn't make sense. Because no one business can dominate 13% of the population. We're only 13%. How much money can we make off of 13%? How about we go after the 90% and try to build wealth?
Right.
No other country, no other nation, and no other race tries to earn wealth strictly off of their tribe, their race, or their state. None.
So what I hear you saying, the key is don't go down the narrow path. Look at more the brighter horizon. And what that means is service everyone.
Exactly.
Strive to provide services, resources, all those different things for the masses.
Right.
And not limit yourself down one particular path.
Exactly. Let's look at it like this. Do you ever hear McDonald's come out and say we're a white company? Do you ever hear Progressive Insurance say we're a white insurance company? Do you even hear Goya say we just a Mexican company?
No.
We're the only people that say we got a black business. Nobody else does it but us. Do you see Goya say, buy Mexican? I just want the Mexicans to buy my Goya product. Do you see Progressive say, we just want white men to buy our insurance? Do you see Southeast Echelon say, we only want white women to buy our product? No. They want everybody to buy their product. How do they do it? Goya may sound like Goya, but look at some of their commercials. They'll have maybe Mexicans over here. They might have Puerto Ricans over here. They might have Dominicans over here. They have Cubans over here. This is why Goya can stand next to Trump, because he recognized business. He didn't care about Trump talking all of his foolishness. He understood the policies that this man was pushing. See, we get caught up in the personality, not in the policy. Same thing with all these other companies. We're the only people that keep fighting about, I got a black-owned business. No, I don't have a black-owned business. I just have to be a black person who has a business.
So what would you say, though, to someone that would push back and say, well, I want to represent, I want to service our people because of slavery.
Because of slavery.
Somebody that say they want to service their people, our people, because they want to have everything, they want to have their business built around someone that look like them. Because they feel like it's not a lot of that in their environments or in their surroundings. What would you say to that?
Been doing that for 60 years. What's the outcomes? We've been doing that since what's the outcome? We live in a global economic market. So if you want to just be a business owner that just want to service black businesses, you have that freedom in America. Me, I want to be an international business. Why? Because number one, if I am able to internationally connect to the global market, then that means the wealth of the global market helps to produce employees in my national market, and I can do much better service having international wealth than having a city-based wealth.
I don't know what to say, people. That was the mic drop. Drop the mic. So he's listen to that, y'all. I mean, that was phenomenal. He mentioned that because you could do more by providing on an international level, capturing any level or any color of money. But then from that, you can service more your people through your business.
Right.
See, because you need to have the money and the resources to be able to service.
Right.
Man, that was fantastic, Uncle Stu.
Yeah.
Fantastic, phenomenal.
I mean, if you okay. When I was growing up, we didn't have the internet.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, only a certain groups of people control the information.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever controls the information controls the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, we have the ability to become our own news reporters.
Mm-hmm.
We have the ability to control the information. We have the ability to educate.
Mm-hmm.
So now what we once complained about, we now have access to do the right thing and do it on an international level. What was the danger since everybody loves to throw up Malcolm X, what was the danger of Malcolm X? Was he dangerous when he was calling white people the devil? No. Was he dangerous when he went against Elijah Muhammad? No. He became dangerous when he went overseas and recognized the truth about people. We're the only ones suffering theoretically here. When you go overseas, they don't call you Black American. They don't call you Afro-American. They don't call you Negro American. They call you American.
Yep.
They call you American. So when he went over there and he recognized, wait a minute, the problems of America is not race, it's economics.
Mm-hmm.
As long as Dr. King was preaching socialism, he lived. But the moment he preached economics, he was killed. The Black Panther Party was good as long as they was talking about guns and violence, social issues. But the moment they started talking about economics, that's when they had to be infiltrated and destroyed. The moment a black person talks economics in America, he's called a coon, an Uncle Tom, and a sellout. Why? Because for us, that is, and I don't even say us, but for many blacks that get it,
right,
are not connected to the parties that we think they should be connected to. Why? Let's put it out there. At least for me, most of the black men that talks economics, most of the black women that talks economics are in a political system called the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
But who's dominating the information given to the black people? Those who only know socialistical ideas. Now I challenge black people who may argue with me. Name a black person that you voted for that ever owned a business. Then I ask, how many black people you voted for that either came from some socialistic party or come from a social background, but never an economic background? Now, I give you a name of somebody that did understand business, understood business very well,
mm-hmm.
And no black people supported him because they didn't allow his information to be known. And he was part of the Democratic Party. There's a man by the name of Jimmy Harrison. He ran for senator, South Carolina. There's more black people in South Carolina than there was in Georgia. They didn't allow Jimmy Harrison to win. They barely put him on the news. Jimmy Harrison was everything that any black person would ever want. Black man, he had his own business, went to the right college, had a family, etc. They really didn't want Jimmy Harrison in office, although he was running as a Democrat. They chose a Stacey Abrams, who did not win an election, who was pushing socialist agendas. They wanted all the socialism, ran around with Black Lives Matter, a socialist party. And to this very day, you still haven't solved any problems. Why? Because our biggest problem is not socialistic. Our biggest problem is economics. And it's becoming economic, not to be a job creator. There's a difference between you working for yourself. You're still an employee.
Mm-hmm.
When you're able to hire people, then you become a business, and then you become a part of what's known as the national economy. Most black people are teaching black people how to have a tax shelter. I want to teach people how to own a business and be part of the international marketplace, both intellectually, socially, and economically. Economics, then the social, then you have a seat at the table.
Oh man, another mic drop, you all. Another mic drop. Because I can say for myself, Uncle Stu, I started off, when I first started my business, I started it off as a business. One thing I didn't do is I didn't run around saying I was a CEO and all that stuff. But I did start off, but then once I started to really understand, I realized the best thing that I can do being in business was to hire or contract or even 1099 somebody else that can work with me and we achieve the same goal.
Exactly.
Because even if they're not a direct employee, if I even 1099 them, I still gave them the leverage to create income where they can now go out and provide a service to the community.
Exactly.
And it took me a while to really understand that. And I think that is key because we in a social media age now,
right,
where a lot of people are so caught up on the concept, the social words of being a boss, being a CEO, I'm a queen, I'm a diva, a guy's, flaunting his material things. But they haven't hired anyone or they haven't even worked with anyone where they was able to add to that individual's bottom line as a business person. Mm-hmm. Because you got two scenarios. You got the scenario of, and you can kind of jump in and help me out.
Okay.
You have the scenario of, when you truly say you're in business, you have one employee, and one employee means you truly in business because you have somebody else that can rely on you,
right,
that has to rely on you so they can be able to go out and produce goods and services.
Right.
But then you can also be an independent business person, but you can contract and 1099 other business people like you. And what that does is that allows them to be a temporary partnership.
Right.
To you come together to provide a good and service that you can get to the mass community. Is that correct?
That is correct. But see, have you ever noticed that the real owners never call themselves boss?
Yeah, I never call myself that because
they're not a boss. I'm a business owner. My job is to produce the ideas that's going to bring in revenue.
Yeah.
Okay? And a true business person is always in the mindset of what can I do to produce more, to manage more, and to divide my resources so that I have multiple streams of income. Mm-hmm. Okay? So they diversify. Mm-hmm. They're always 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of what they're trying to do. So if I look at my business, people will say, "Oh, well, you're a videographer, you're a podcaster, you're a YouTuber." No, I'm not. My business is network media. What does that mean? That means I have multiple streams of communication to get out to multiples of platforms, to get out multiples of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to a global market.
Right.
Because whatever I say, if I want to speak in French, I have things that can take my same English speaking and turn it French, Dutch, Mandarin, Cantonese. So I deal internationally with the information that I have.
Right.
What does this allow? When people tap into me internationally, they're not tapping into me to say he's black. They don't care that I'm American. All they want to know is the information that I'm providing able to help them out and produce for them. They want the best information I can provide.
That's correct.
Okay? So when we look at business, I'm looking at the best employee who can give me the best service to help me produce the best results. So guess what? If I have a white man, an Asian woman, and a Puerto Rican couple, I don't care about their race. Who can produce the best outcome for me? Now, if I had to add race, because, we are all social creatures, then I'm going to do what other businesses do, which means maybe my vice president might be black, but they're going to be the best black vice president I have. Maybe my marketing director is black, but it doesn't mean that the rest of my crew is not diversified.
Right.
Because I want to produce the best outcomes for my business. Now, here's where the other aspect goes. Now that I'm able to produce this social media network where I'm talking internationally, how does that help locally? That gives me the freedom. Now that I don't have to worry about this side of the water, now I have the freedom to go to certain communities and invest in other people's businesses. I have the money to invest in certain social organizations. I have the freedom of speech, which means I can speak on global, international issues because I'm an international person.
Right.
I'm not just a dude on a corner that got a grocery store.
Right.
I'm not just applying or appeasing one group.
Right.
So when I step up into a business organization, whether it's a city organization or a state organization or even the federal government, I'm no longer speaking as Uncle Stu on this little corner block. I speak internationally. I come with true power. Either you pass this policy or I move my business over here.
Right.
Why moving my business over here? Because if I move my business and I control 100, 200 people, I control the real economics of that city.
Right.
Being a solo person, you don't control nothing.
Right.
The basic way for me to sum it up is this. When we truly understand what power means, when we and no one person has to have all the power. Just take the power you have and do the best that you can do Network with real people regardless of who they are and what they look like, and bring their resources home to you. And then teach it. Stop trying to profit off of everything that happens.
Facts.
The money will come. The money will follow the ministry. You see what I'm saying? Money follows ministry. Ministry don't follow the money.
Right.
The more harder work I do, the money will follow me, because what are you really following?
Right.
I'm following success.
Right.
I don't have to brag about it. I ain't got to talk about it. I just got to be about it.
Right.
The problem is, if we look at YouTubers today, if you're spending all your time and your energy talking about somebody else's business, guess what? You don't have a business. You got a gossip column. You're not solving a problem. You're just regurgitating it.
Right.
If you a man that tells me these black women don't want to listen to me, don't want to follow me, don't want to do this, don't want to do that, and you spend your whole day complaining about them, maybe I'm wrong, but that means you ain't got nothing. I ain't got time to worry about your business if I'm too much into mine.
Right.
I'm going to solve my problem, which is going to solve any other problem. And if you don't want to get on board, then you're going to die to your own problem. We cry about we want freedom. But name anybody that's been free begging the government to free them, begging their slave masters to free them. What made slavery powerful? Well, we're in a state where they talked about the biggest slave rebellion in America. Either you're going to fight for your freedom or not. If I say to white America, I want to be equal, that means however that equality comes. If that means I got to own my own business, handle my own money, do my own resources, that means I can't keep running to my daddy for money if I want to be considered a man. He'll never respect me if I always got a handout. He'll never respect me if I can't manage my children.
Right.
I want him to call me Mr. Stewart. He'll always call me Boy Stewart if I act like a boy. Go back to Cadillac Records. What did that dude do? He what is it? Wolf. The first scene we saw Wolf in an old beat up truck, right? And they tried to offer him a brand new Cadillac. Nice, shiny, brand new Cadillac. What did Wolf tell him? My truck paid for. That right there, that little gift, that little dingly thing, you paying for that. I already own a truck. My daddy taught me that a man owns something.
Right.
So that means the man that was offering this little dingy car, he will always have to go back to the man to get this car. He had to go back to nobody to get this. Then, if you look at towards the end of that movie, when they was starting to do the funeral, this same Wolf that owned the truck had a big wad of cash. And he told my man, he said, here, I got money for the funeral. But the man he gave the money to had to go to the white man to get what? Money to bury his own friend. We keep telling white America, you owe us. We want you to love us. We want you to respect us. Well, what have we done to earn it? We got to go out there and say, re-educate ourselves for the positive quality, control our own thoughts. We now have all the resources. We got it. So what are we going to do about it? Let's pretend that reparations came. Let's pretend. Let's pretend they said, we're going to give all black people all this money. How many black people are going to formulate a business and formulate an economic system to go global in whatever they're going to do? We can, as prejudiced, as hard as this going to sound, let's be honest. What do most of us do? We get a paycheck. We going to get us some liquor. We going to go play some lotto. We going to turn around and buy some material goods. But nobody's going to go and find a banker, an investor, and a lawyer in order to produce the money we got. So guess what? They're going to give us a check. How many of us are going to say we're going to have that check by the end of the year? How many people win the lotto and still go broke? How many tax return checks are we going to get and still don't have nothing? Why? How many policies teaches economics, teaches budgeting, teaches investments? Because all of our policy teaches us, wait on the government, wait for this social program, keep on begging.
Wow. So let's end with this. So just do a quick summary. So, and I want to make sure I hear you correctly. So what you're saying then, ultimately, to really get ourselves back in order, we really got to get to understanding the economic side of policy.
The economic side of policy. What does this policy do to our economic well-being? And as long as we don't get there and really understand what's being said, we will always be on the losing end every single time. And we have been losing. All we vote for is who is at the top of the ticket. We never really understand what's at the bottom of the ticket. We love the salesman to sell us our emotional, but we never look at the salesman that's selling us our economics. And we keep selling out our economics just for short-term social gain. I'd rather buy a $5,000 car and have money in my pocket than a $50,000 car and be in debt for the rest of my life.
Wow, mic drop. That's the mic drop, you all. But before we go, I want to thank you, Uncle Stu.
No problem.
We appreciate having you on.
Be back anytime.
We definitely, Uncle Stu definitely dropped some jewels, you all. I mean, really, everybody should play this back, take some notes. And as always, we just wanted to do something a little different, get some background to how did we get here economically. Because I believe, in closing, I believe that's one of the areas why the Intentional Millionaire came to existence, is because we want to help the economic portion of, if we can at least individually get ourselves at least to $1 million portfolio, that's where at least starts, where you can at least have some leverage and some level of peace, so you don't have to do everything based off of a social aspect. You can do it based off of your economic aspect. Correct. So that's the Intentional Millionaire on another video. And Uncle Stu, do you anything in closing before we go?
Nah, I enjoyed this time. I'll definitely be back again, and we can get into other topics dealing with, business, family relationships, and whatever else that you want to talk about.
All right. So we'll see you on the next video. And as always, don't forget to count your coins, because every coin gets you closer to $1, and every dollar gets you closer to your millionaire portfolio. Let's go AIM, because the AIM movement is in existence.